If your POTS symptoms flare up like clockwork every single month, you're having more dizziness, you're having the racing heart and the palpitations, maybe some fatigue, or even anxiety just before your period, today we're going to talk about why that happens and how you can support your body through it. So let's start with what you already know in your body. So the week before your period or the first few days of your cycle definitely feel harder. You're probably more tired, more lightheaded, even more sensitive to external stimuli, so things like light, heat, sound, touch. Your anxiety is sharper, your heart is racing faster. Getting through the day feels like moving through quicksand. And if you've ever heard that hormones affect everything, no one really talks about how they affect POTS. But there is a very real connection, and understanding it is the first step to getting back some control. So POTS, or Postural Orthostatic Tachycardia syndrome, means that your autonomic nervous system is struggling to manage blood flow, it is having a hard time with heart rate, and that is especially when you're upright or when you are moving. So hormones like estrogen and progesterone definitely affect this. They influence how much blood volume you have, how your blood vessels tighten and relax, and how your nervous system responds to changes. So when your hormone levels are shifting during your cycle, your body doesn't just feel off. It is actually working harder to stabilize all of the systems that are already sensitive with POTS. So let's break down what those monthly symptom waves can actually look like for someone who has POTS. So most of the clients that I work with do notice the same pattern, if not patterns that are pretty similar, over and over and over again each month. So the week before your period, you really start feeling it. You're getting more anxious, even if nothing is wrong. You're getting dizzy faster when you maybe sit up in bed or roll over in bed, or when you stand, or even bend over to pick something up. Your heart is racing more easily. You don't have to be running, but you feel like you've been running for miles. And you might get that really low, wired, and tired feeling where your body is desperate for rest, but your system is on high alert. It's got all of this energy like you just had 3 cups of coffee. And then during your period, that's when the fatigue hits the hardest. Even basic tasks feel heavier, like showering or brushing your teeth, maybe cleaning around the house, or even going to work. You probably have a lot more nausea, more brain fog. Maybe you're going to the bathroom frequently throughout the day and you can't hold it when you need to. Maybe even body aches. And a lot of women tend to describe this as a flare within a flare. And then after your period ends, there's usually a small window where everything starts to ease up. So you feel more stable, you feel more clear-headed, you can think better, make decisions easier, symptoms start to back off, maybe you're having less food sensitivities. This is very common, and it makes complete sense when you understand what is going on beneath. So your blood volume drops during your period due to bleeding. And for someone with POTS whose blood flow is already compromised, even small amounts of blood can increase that lightheadedness and fatigue. And if you are someone who does have POTS and maybe also has histamine issues, that can also irritate your bladder around your period, and you might be going to the bathroom a lot more frequently too. So then we also have estrogen and progesterone dipping just before your period. So estrogen and progesterone help to regulate blood vessel tone and fluid balance. So without their support, your body has to work a lot harder to maintain stability there as well. And these shifts all hit a nervous system that is already overstimulated if POTS is present. So your body perceives them as much bigger threats than they really are. And this is why it can feel like your symptoms are taking over your life every single month, even when you're doing everything right. But the key here is predictability. So once you start to see that this is a pattern and not necessarily a setback or not a failure, you can start to plan for it, right? And that is where things start to change. So let's talk about what you can do to make these monthly flares easier to ride out. Because while we can't completely stop hormonal shifts, we can reduce how hard they hit. And for someone who has a sensitive nervous system, maybe a chronic illness or POTS, even small adjustments can make a very big difference over time. So here are the most helpful tools. First is tracking your cycle. And this, again, it sounds simple, but is very powerful. So you can use an app, you can use a journal, you can use a calendar on the wall, something to mark the days of your cycle and note when you feel worse, when your symptoms are spiking, what kind of support helps. And then after a month or two, you'll start to see the patterns, right? What days tend to be harder? How can you plan ahead? Maybe it's important for you not to plan certain activities or social events around certain parts of your cycle, right? Knowing is half the battle, right? Knowing what to expect. Then we need to focus on prioritizing our hydration. So just before your period and during your period, your blood volume dips, right? So your hydration matters even more. And this isn't just about water. You need to add electrolytes, especially sodium, when you have POTS to help maintain fluid balance and support circulation. A simple trick that I use for myself and with other clients is a pinch of Celtic sea salt in water. If you have histamine issues, I would avoid lemon. If that's not a problem, you can always add some lemon or some lime in with that salt. Even electrolyte mixes like Element can be very good for people who have POTS. So you can sip on that throughout the day, not just in moments when you feel lightheaded. But again, we don't want to chug it all at once. We want to sip throughout the day. We also want to focus on fueling the body consistently. So try to avoid skipping meals during this time. I know it can be difficult. Like for me, I was bedridden for almost a year and my cycles were the worst part of my POTS. So I would do my best to meal prep ahead of time just to make sure that I had healthy, balanced meals that had good proteins and healthy fats and those slow digesting carbs before my period was coming, because I knew every single month the fatigue was going to hit. So making sure you have the protein, fats, and slow digesting carbs helps to stabilize blood sugar, prevent those energy crashes, and reduce the stress load on your nervous system. Because when we are stressed and we have POTS, what happens? It always flares up the symptoms more. So even something small like a smoothie with some protein powder or almond butter, even a handful of turkey slices and maybe some sweet potato chips, something like that can really help to keep your energy stabilized throughout the day. We also want to focus on supporting the nervous system. Like I said, stress can impact your POTS. So your body is already working really hard to stay balanced in so many ways. It is beautiful when we start to give it safety signals so that it can relax. And a few gentle things that you can start to do is maybe trying some slow breathing before bed or after a really stressful moment. You can try grounding practices like walking barefoot outside or maybe sitting in the sun for just a little bit. Gentle movement like stretching or swaying. For me, I fell in love with yin yoga and yoga nidra. These two were huge factors in my recovery from long COVID and some chronic illnesses that I was also diagnosed with along the way. And again, these practices help to quiet that background alarm in our nervous system and help to reduce the total stress load that our body is carrying, because mental stress is stress, right? But so is our period, so is POTS in general. So the more that we can alleviate that, the happier our body is going to be. And lastly, plan for rest days. So I did touch on this a little bit in the first one where we were talking about tracking, but planning is huge, especially if you are someone who tends to push through or maybe ignore your symptoms until the last possible second. If you know the first 2 days of your cycle are the hardest for you, give yourself some grace and give yourself some permission to lighten your load. Cancel any non-essential plans, nap if you need to, move slower without guilt, because you deserve to have that time of rest. It is sacred for you. It is sacred for your body. And not only that, but this helps you bounce back faster instead of crashing harder and longer later. Now, I know these strategies aren't super dramatic, but they are effective. They are strategies that I have used in my healing journey and that I have encouraged clients to use and even patients to use, especially when practiced consistently month after month. So if you have been knocked down every month by your symptoms, if you are just trying to push through, you are not overreacting. You are not weak. Your body is doing the best it can to manage those complex shifts, and it is asking you for support and not judgment. So you don't have to keep guessing or dreading that week on the calendar. Now, at our clinic, we help women with POTS and cycle-related flare-ups to understand their hormonal and nervous system patterns, to use functional lab testing to uncover any nutrient gaps that might be present, any stress overload, even hidden toxic exposures that can be influencing the POTS or the cycle-related flares that they're having. And then we help to build personalized support plans so that each cycle every month becomes much more manageable for them. And if you're not quite ready for one-on-one care, we have built the Nervous System Healing Code for this exact reason. It will be launching in less than 30 days, and we are so excited. Inside this program, you are going to learn how to regulate your stress response, how to calm flares and triggers, how to use food, hydration, and how to use rhythm to steady your system, and how to gently rewire your body's perception of safety so that monthly flares no longer spiral into shutdown. And I can say that for myself and for many of our clients, they have found that once their nervous system is supported and their body feels safer, those monthly POTS spikes very much lose their intensity. And then they finally get that sense of control back. So if you are ready for that kind of stability, you can join our program or book a one-on-one consultation using the links below.